Let me tell you what happened when I spent 6 months pulling actual ownership cost data on every Japanese automotive brand sold in the North American market. I did not use manufacturer reliability surveys. I did not use the satisfaction scores that come from owner polls conducted in the first 90 days of ownership, when the car still smells new and nobody has had a chance to discover anything wrong with it. I used repair order data from independent shops, the shops that see vehicles after the warranty has expired and the manufacturer's ability to obscure problems with covered repairs has ended. I used insurance actuarial tables that price risk based on what claims actually cost, not on what brands tell consumers about their reliability. I used 12-year total cost of ownership projections that include depreciation, fuel, insurance, maintenance, and unscheduled repairs. Every dollar that actually leaves your pocket because you own a specific vehicle. And I ranked the brands in order from most expensive to least expensive to own over a full ownership cycle. The results were not what I expected, and they will not be what you expect. Because the brand that most people in this market associate most strongly with value and reliability, the brand that has built its entire identity around being the rational, economical choice, is not at the top of this list. And the brand that most people dismiss as too expensive, too focused on driving dynamics, too indifferent to the practical concerns of everyday ownership, that brand outperforms most of its Japanese competitors on the metrics that actually determine what a vehicle costs you to own. I am going to take you through every brand. I am going to show you the specific numbers that drive the rankings. And I am going to explain, for each brand, the specific engineering or product decisions that explain why the numbers came out the way they did. Because understanding why is the information that allows you to make better purchasing decisions, not just know the order. Before the rankings, let me be specific about methodology, because the methodology is everything in this kind of analysis, and anyone presenting ownership cost data without explaining exactly how they calculated it should not be trusted. Total cost of ownership, as I am calculating it, covers a 12-year period from new, representing the full realistic ownership cycle for a buyer who keeps vehicles rather than leasing or trading on short cycles. It includes 5 cost categories. First, depreciation, the difference between what you paid for the vehicle and what it is worth at 12 years. This is calculated using actual resale value data from the used market, not projected resale values from manufacturer marketing materials. Second, fuel cost, calculated using the vehicle's EPA combined fuel economy rating and a standardized 15,000 annual miles at a consistent national average fuel price. Third, insurance, using national average insurance cost data by vehicle model from multiple insurance providers. Fourth, scheduled maintenance, the actual cost of all manufacturer-specified services over the 12-year period at independent shop labor rates, not dealer rates. Fifth, unscheduled repairs, based on repair frequency data and average repair cost data from the independent repair order database, representing the realistic cost of the problems that actually occur on these vehicles in real ownership, not the problems that appear in manufacturer warranty data. These 5 categories produce a single total cost number per vehicle, and those numbers produce the brand rankings. I have used the most popular model from each brand as the representative vehicle, the model that accounts for the largest share of that brand's North American sales volume, because that is the vehicle that most owners of each brand actually own. With the methodology established, let's go to the rankings. Worst to best. Starting at the bottom, the most expensive brand to own over 12 years is Mitsubishi. I want to be careful here about what this ranking means and does not mean, because Mitsubishi's position at the bottom of this list is not primarily about vehicle quality. It is primarily about depreciation. And the depreciation story for Mitsubishi in the North American market is one of the most dramatic in the industry. A new Mitsubishi Outlander, the brand's volume leader in North America, depreciates approximately 67% of its original purchase price over 5 years. That means a vehicle purchased for $30,000 is worth approximately $10,000 at the 5-year mark. By year 12, the residual value is minimal. This depreciation curve means that a buyer who purchases a Mitsubishi new is effectively prepaying for the largest single cost of vehicle ownership, the value transfer from buyer to market that occurs during the ownership period, at a rate that is dramatically worse than most of their Japanese competitors. The reason for this depreciation rate is not that Mitsubishi vehicles are unreliable. The Outlander's mechanical reliability record is actually adequate. Its repair frequency and repair cost data are not significantly worse than the segment average. The reason is brand perception and brand scale. Mitsubishi's diminished North American presence, its minimal advertising budget relative to Toyota and Honda, its small dealer network, its limited model lineup, means that the brand does not generate the aspirational demand that supports strong resale values. Used buyers who have many alternatives in the compact and midsize SUV segment simply do not prefer a used Mitsubishi over a used Toyota or Honda at the same price, and this preference gap is what produces the depreciation differential. The practical implication for buyers: Mitsubishi vehicles purchased used, at prices already reflecting the severe new car depreciation, represent a very different value proposition than Mitsubishi vehicles purchased new. A 5-year-old Outlander at $10,000, assuming the specific vehicle has a clean history, is a reasonable transportation value. A new Outlander at $30,000 is one of the most expensive purchase decisions available in the Japanese brand segment when total ownership cost is the evaluation criterion. The scheduled maintenance costs for Mitsubishi are moderate, not significantly above or below the segment average. The unscheduled repair costs are slightly elevated compared to Toyota and Honda, but not dramatically so, and the CVT-equipped models carry a higher unscheduled repair risk than the available AWD models with conventional automatic transmissions, a distinction that matters to buyers evaluating specific configurations. The insurance cost for Mitsubishi is actually low, consistently below the segment average, reflecting the relatively modest vehicle values and the conservative driver profile that tends toward Mitsubishi ownership. This is the one cost category where Mitsubishi outperforms more prestigious Japanese brands. 6th place, the second most expensive brand overall, is Infiniti. Infiniti's position in this ranking is the result of a different cost structure than Mitsubishi's. Infiniti vehicles hold their value better than Mitsubishi. The depreciation, while significant, is not as extreme as Mitsubishi's. The problem is everything else. Infiniti is Nissan's luxury division, and its vehicles share platforms and powertrains with Nissan products. This shared architecture has advantages. Parts commonality with Nissan's high-volume production means some components are genuinely cheap and widely available. But Infiniti's position as a premium brand means that the same repair, performed on identical components, is billed at a higher rate than the equivalent Nissan repair, because the brand positioning creates the expectation of higher service costs. The more significant issue with Infiniti's cost profile is the specific powertrain problems that affect several of its most popular models. The Infiniti QX60, the brand's volume leader in North America, has been powered by a continuously variable transmission that shares its fundamental architecture with the CVT units that produced Nissan's worst reliability outcomes in the Altima and Sentra applications discussed in the previous video. In the QX60's heavier, more powerful application, the thermal and load demands on the transmission are greater than in the compact car application, and the failure rate reflects this. CVT replacement on a QX60 runs between $4,000 and $5,000, a repair cost that, when it occurs between the warranty expiration and the end of a 12-year ownership cycle, dramatically affects the total ownership cost calculation. The QX50 with the variable compression turbo engine, the VC turbo, is another significant unscheduled repair risk. The VC turbo is an engineering achievement of the first order, an engine that can physically change its compression ratio during operation, allowing it to optimize for both power output and fuel efficiency depending on the load. The engineering is impressive. The reliability record in the early production years is not. Engine management software issues, timing chain wear, and oil consumption concerns on early examples produced a higher than acceptable repair frequency for an engine in a premium vehicle. Nissan Infiniti has addressed some of these issues through software updates and revised parts, and later production years show improved reliability data. But the early VC Turbo QX50s carry elevated repair cost risk that affects the brand average for the period covered by this analysis. Scheduled maintenance costs for Infiniti are above the Japanese brand average, reflecting the premium labor rates charged by Infiniti dealers and the higher cost of oil filters, air filters, and other consumable service components specific to these models. Fifth place overall is Acura. Acura's position at fifth is simultaneously a reflection of the brand's genuine engineering quality and a demonstration of how premium positioning affects total ownership cost, even when the underlying vehicles are mechanically sound. Acura is Honda's luxury division, and its vehicles are built on the same engineering philosophy that makes Honda one of the most reliable brands in the world. The underlying mechanical platforms, the K-Series and newer K20C series engines, the SHAWD all-wheel drive system, the Honda-developed 10-speed automatic transmissions in current models, are genuinely well-engineered components with good reliability records. The MDX, Acura's volume leader, has one of the better reliability records in the midsize luxury SUV segment. But the premium positioning that defines Acura raises every cost category. A scheduled oil change on an Acura MDX at a dealer costs nearly twice what the same service costs on an equivalent Honda CR-V at a Honda dealer or an independent shop, despite the oil specification and the labor involved being essentially identical. Replacement brake rotors for an Acura are more expensive than for the equivalent Honda, because the premium branding allows suppliers to price them at a premium. Tire sizes on Acura vehicles, typically larger diameter and lower profile than the equivalent Honda, are more expensive to replace. Insurance premiums on Acura vehicles are higher than on equivalent Hondas, reflecting higher vehicle values. The depreciation on Acura is better than Infiniti and Mitsubishi, but worse than the mainstream Japanese brands, reflecting the premium segment's generally steeper depreciation curves. Acura's used market resale values are supported by the genuine quality of the vehicles, but limited by the brand's relatively modest aspirational status compared to German luxury alternatives. The specific Acura model that raises the brand's unscheduled repair cost average is the TLX with the SHAWD system in earlier production years. The SHAWD system, super handling, all-wheel drive, is a sophisticated torque vectoring system that actively distributes torque between the rear wheels to improve handling dynamics. It is mechanically complex, requiring a rear drive unit with its own actuators, sensors, and fluid management. When it requires repair, which it does more often than the simpler AWD systems in competing vehicles, the repair cost is significant. Later generation SHAWD systems have improved reliability, but the early generation examples drag the brand average upward. Fourth place, and this is where the results start to become genuinely surprising, is Subaru. Subaru's fourth-place position will shock a significant number of people who have been told, and who sincerely believe, that Subaru represents the reliable, practical, all-wheel drive choice for buyers who prioritize value and dependability. The data tells a more complicated story. Subaru's total cost of ownership over 12 years is elevated above the segment median for three specific reasons that compound in their effect. The first is depreciation. Subaru's resale values are actually strong in the first 5 years. The combination of genuine all-wheel drive capability, the outdoor lifestyle brand identity, and the active owner community that has developed around the brand supports above-average demand in the used market. But beyond 5 years, Subaru resale values decline more steeply than Toyota and Honda equivalents, reflecting the greater uncertainty about long-term mechanical condition that comes from the brand's documented reliability issues. The second reason is the head gasket history that affects the EJ series engines used in the Forester, Legacy, and Outback through 2011, described in detail in the previous video on worst and best Japanese cars. These failures produce repair costs in the $1,500 to $2,500 range at the point in the ownership cycle where warranty coverage has expired, and the failure is the owner's full financial responsibility. A vehicle that has not yet had its head gaskets replaced when it is purchased used is a vehicle with a known pending repair that the purchase price should reflect. A vehicle with a post-2011 FA series engine does not carry this specific risk, and the newer flat-4 architecture shows substantially better reliability data. The third reason is what I call the Subaru electrical attrition problem. This is not a single specific failure, but a pattern of electrical system reliability that shows up consistently in the repair order data for high-mileage Subaru vehicles. Intermittent faults in the infotainment system, reliability issues with the dual-clutch transmission in Crosstrek applications, and electronics-related problems in the EyeSight driver assistance system that produce fault codes requiring dealer-level diagnosis even when the underlying function is not impaired. These are not catastrophic failures. They are the kind of persistent, low-grade irritants that generate multiple shop visits without producing a single large repair bill, but which accumulate into a meaningful repair cost contribution over a 12-year ownership period. Fuel cost is a significant factor in Subaru's total ownership cost that is rarely included in informal reliability discussions. Subaru's naturally aspirated engines achieve adequate fuel economy. The 2.5-liter four-cylinder in the Outback averages approximately 26 miles per gallon in mixed driving. But the all-wheel drive system that is essentially universal across the Subaru lineup imposes a fuel economy penalty relative to front-wheel drive competitors of approximately 2 to 4 miles per gallon in mixed driving, a penalty that compounds into hundreds of additional fuel dollars per year and thousands over the 12-year ownership cycle. There is an important distinction within the Subaru lineup that the brand average obscures, and buyers evaluating a specific Subaru purchase need to understand it clearly. The FA series engines, the FA20 and FA24, introduced progressively from 2013 onward, do not carry the head gasket vulnerability of the EJ25. The FA series engines use a different block material specification and a revised cooling system design that addresses the fundamental cause of the EJ25's thermal cycling problem. A 2015 and later Forester, Outback, or Impreza with the FA series engine is a meaningfully different ownership cost proposition than a pre-2012 model with the EJ25. The challenge for buyers is that the used market does not always clearly differentiate these generations in its pricing. A 2012 Forester with the EJ25 and a 2015 Forester with the FA20 are sold in overlapping price ranges, particularly as the years reduce the price differential between production generations. The buyer who pays the same price for an EJ25 Forester as for an FA20 Forester has paid the wrong price for the wrong generation. They have not priced in the pending head gasket repair that the EJ25 may require, while the FA20 buyer has acquired a fundamentally better mechanical risk at the same cost. This generation distinction matters more for Subaru than for any other brand in this ranking, because the difference between the two engine families is the difference between a brand that should be in the lower half of this cost ranking and a brand that would be competitive with Mazda and Honda if the newer engines are the basis of evaluation. The second area where Subaru's ownership cost profile diverges from its reputation is in the cost of maintaining its all-wheel drive system correctly. The Subaru symmetrical all-wheel drive system requires specific maintenance attention that most owners either do not know about or do not perform. The rear differential requires its own fluid, changed every 30,000 miles. That is separate from the transmission fluid. The center differential in continuously variable transmission applications requires a specific CVT fluid that is more expensive than conventional automatic transmission fluid and that has a shorter useful service life. When these fluids are maintained correctly, the drivetrain performs reliably for very high mileage. When they are neglected, which they frequently are because most quick lube shops and many general repair shops either do not know the specifications or do not stock the correct fluids, the rear differential and center differential develop wear that produces the whirring and shuddering sounds associated with Subaru drivetrain problems at high mileage. The Subaru owner who understands these maintenance requirements and executes them correctly will have a substantially better ownership cost experience than the brand average suggests. The Subaru owner who follows only the oil change reminder and ignores the drivetrain fluids will confirm the negative end of the brand's ownership cost distribution. Third place overall is Mazda. Mazda's third-place ranking is the result that challenges the conventional hierarchy most directly. In most consumer conversations about Japanese brand reliability, Mazda is discussed as an afterthought. A brand that makes engaging vehicles with good quality but that lacks the scale, the brand recognition, and the long-term reliability data of Toyota and Honda. This conventional view is wrong, and the ownership cost data shows exactly why it is wrong. Mazda's total 12-year ownership cost is lower than Subaru, lower than Acura, lower than Infiniti, and lower than Mitsubishi. It is close to Honda's, within a margin that could be reversed depending on which specific model year of each brand is evaluated. And in several individual cost categories, Mazda outperforms every other brand in the ranking. The depreciation story for Mazda is the most underappreciated element of its ownership cost advantage. Mazda vehicles have held their value in the used market at a rate that has been improving consistently over the last decade, driven by the increasing recognition of Mazda's quality among used car buyers who have owned them, worked on them, and observed their behavior at high mileage. The Mazda 3 and Mazda CX-5 in particular have shown depreciation curves that approach Honda and Toyota benchmarks in recent model year evaluations. A meaningful shift from the earlier era when Mazda's brand recognition deficit produced faster depreciation. The scheduled maintenance cost for Mazda is among the lowest in the Japanese segment. Mazda's engineering approach, avoiding unnecessary mechanical complexity, using timing chains rather than belts across its modern engine lineup, specifying oil change intervals and service procedures that are straightforward and accessible at any competent independent shop, produces maintenance schedules that are both infrequent and inexpensive per service. The 5-liter Skyactiv G engine, used across the Mazda 3, CX-5, and CX-9 in multiple configurations, has one of the cleanest maintenance profiles in the mainstream Japanese segment. No timing belt interval, no variable valve timing system requiring specific cleaning protocols. No CVT. The scheduled services are oil changes, filter replacements, and standard inspection items. The kind of maintenance schedule that does not generate unpleasant surprises. Unscheduled repair costs for Mazda are low. The brand consistently appears in the top tier of repair frequency rankings from Consumer Reports and from independent repair order data, reflecting the genuine quality of its mechanical engineering. The Skyactiv G engines show excellent long-term durability data. The 6-speed automatic transmission used in most Mazda models, a conventional torque converter unit without the CVT complexity that burdens several competitors, has a very good reliability record and is straightforward to service and rebuild when necessary. The one area where Mazda's ownership cost profile carries uncertainty is the newer Skyactiv X engine, a spark-controlled compression-ignition engine introduced in 2019 that represents genuinely innovative engineering, but whose long-term real-world reliability data is still accumulating. Early Skyactiv X ownership reports have been mixed, with some owners reporting inconsistent fuel economy benefits relative to the conventional Skyactiv G, and some reporting electronics-related faults associated with the complex combustion management system. For buyers evaluating long-term ownership cost, the conventional Skyactiv G remains the lower-risk powertrain choice within the Mazda lineup until the Skyactiv X dataset is larger and more definitive. Second place overall is Honda. Honda's second-place ranking will surprise some buyers and confirm the expectations of others. In the traditional hierarchy of Japanese brand reliability, Honda and Toyota are discussed as essentially equivalent, as the two brands that have jointly defined the standard for reliable transportation. The data shows they are not equivalent. Toyota is better, but Honda is genuinely good, and its specific advantages and disadvantages are worth understanding precisely. Honda's depreciation is strong, consistently among the best in the Japanese segment, driven by the genuine used market demand for Honda vehicles that reflects their reputation for long-term reliability. The Accord and CR-V hold their value across the full 12-year cycle at rates that approach Toyota benchmarks and that significantly outperform Subaru, Acura, and Mitsubishi. The scheduled maintenance cost for Honda is moderate, slightly above Mazda's, slightly below Toyota's in most configurations. Honda's maintenance requirements are straightforward and well supported by the independent service industry. The K-Series and L-Series engines that power the majority of Honda's lineup are understood by every competent mechanic in every market. Parts are cheap, available, and abundant. Labor is straightforward and accessible. The owner who maintains a Honda at an independent shop rather than a dealer incurs lower maintenance costs than almost any other Japanese brand by virtue of the widespread availability of Honda competent mechanical labor at competitive rates. Unscheduled repair costs for Honda are low overall, but the data shows a specific fault line within the Honda lineup that buyers need to understand. The Earth Dreams EC1 5-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, introduced in 2015 and now powering the Civic, CR-V, and HR-V across their volume ranges, has produced oil dilution complaints in cold climates that Toyota's equivalent turbocharged engine has not replicated at the same frequency. The oil dilution issue, where gasoline from the direct injection cold start cycle mixes with the engine oil in cold weather driving conditions, was acknowledged by Honda through a software update and a revised warm-up protocol, and the current calibration significantly reduces the incidence. But the issue demonstrated that the 1.5T's cold weather performance was not fully optimized at launch, and high-mileage data on the long-term bearing wear consequences of early ownership oil dilution events is still accumulating. The Honda ZVT, introduced in the Fit and HR-V and expanded across some configurations, has not produced the failure rates of Nissan's CVT. Honda's CVT calibration is more conservative. The fluid change intervals are more clearly specified and more aggressively recommended, and the failure data is substantially better than Nissan's equivalent applications. But Honda's CVT applications carry higher long-term repair risk than Honda's conventional automatic and manual transmission applications, a distinction that matters in configuration selection. The specific Honda models that drag the brand average upward are the early CR-V with the 1.5T in extreme cold climate operation, and the Odyssey minivan with its 10-speed automatic transmission in the 2018 to 2021 production window. The Odyssey's 10-speed transmission produced shudder complaints on a sufficient number of vehicles that Honda issued multiple technical service bulletins addressing torque, converter lockup calibration, and transmission fluid specification. The issues have been substantially addressed in later production, but the early 10-speed Odyssey carries elevated transmission repair risk relative to the rest of the Honda lineup. What Honda's second-place ranking reveals about the gap between Honda and Toyota is instructive. In absolute terms, Honda's ownership cost is very close to Toyota's in scheduled maintenance and insurance, and Honda actually outperforms Toyota in a few specific models on unscheduled repair frequency. The gap is predominantly in depreciation. Toyota's used market premium over Honda is consistent, persistent, and larger than most buyers expect when they are making their new car purchase decision. The practical implication of this depreciation gap is significant for buyers who are choosing between a new Toyota and a new Honda at similar sticker prices. The Honda buyer and the Toyota buyer pay similar monthly costs while the vehicles are being financed or leased. The Toyota buyer recovers several $1,000s more at sale or trade-in. Over a 12-year single ownership cycle, which is the evaluation period for this ranking, the Toyota buyer will typically have a lower out-of-pocket total cost despite potentially paying a slightly higher initial price. This calculation changes substantially for buyers who purchase used. A 3-year-old Honda, already past the steepest part of its depreciation curve, represents a different value equation than the same Honda purchased new. The used Honda buyer is not absorbing the premium new car depreciation that disadvantages the new car purchase. They are buying proven mechanical quality at a price that already reflects the market's realistic assessment of the vehicle's future value. And at that used market entry point, the Honda buyer's subsequent ownership costs are very competitive with an equivalent used Toyota. The Honda buyer who maximizes value from the brand's second-place position is the buyer who purchases a 3 to 5-year-old Honda CR-V or Accord, with the 1.5T configured for climate-appropriate use, or the 2. Nitro T in markets where cold-weather oil dilution is a genuine risk, and maintains it on the disciplined service schedule that the brand's mechanical quality rewards with exceptional long-term reliability. First place, the lowest total cost of ownership of any Japanese brand over 12 years, is Toyota. Toyota's first-place ranking is not surprising. What is surprising is the magnitude of the advantage in specific cost categories, and the specific reasons behind it that go beyond the general understanding of Toyota's reputation for reliability. The depreciation advantage for Toyota is the most significant single cost differential in the ranking. A Toyota Camry purchased new depreciates approximately 45% of its original value over 5 years, compared to 55% for a Honda Accord, 60% for a Mazda 6, and 67% for a Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross. Over the full 12-year cycle, this depreciation differential translates into several $1,000s of additional value retained, money that is in your pocket at sale time or that reduces the effective cost of the subsequent purchase if the vehicle is traded. The reason Toyota's depreciation is lower is not simply brand reputation, though brand reputation contributes. It is the combination of brand reputation and genuine long-term reliability data that has been confirmed across decades of high-mileage ownership by a very large owner population. When buyers in the used market pay a premium for used Toyotas, they are not paying purely on faith. They are paying based on the accumulated evidence of how these vehicles perform at high mileage, visible in the cars themselves and in the documented ownership histories of the large Toyota owner community. The scheduled maintenance cost for Toyota is actually slightly higher than Mazda and Honda on a per-service basis, primarily because Toyota's dealer network tends toward slightly higher labor rates than Honda dealers, and because some Toyota maintenance intervals include services: differential fluid, transfer case fluid on four-wheel drive models, that are not present on the equivalent Honda configurations. Over the full 12-year cycle, this difference is modest, a few $100s, and is more than compensated by Toyota's advantages in other cost categories. The unscheduled repair cost for Toyota is the lowest in the Japanese segment. Not close, lowest by a meaningful margin. The repair frequency data from independent shops shows Toyota vehicles needing unscheduled repairs less often than every competitor in the ranking, and when repairs are required, the average cost is lower because the parts are cheap, the procedures are well documented, and the mechanic availability is universal. There is nowhere in North America where you cannot find a competent mechanic who has worked extensively on Toyota engines and transmissions. There is nowhere where Toyota parts are difficult to source at competitive prices. This universality of support infrastructure is itself a form of reliability, not just the probability that something will go wrong, but the cost and convenience penalty when it does. The specific Toyota models that represent the strongest ownership cost advantage relative to alternatives in their segment are the Camry with the 2AR FE or A25A FKS 4-cylinder, the Corolla with the 2ZR EFE or newer M20A FKS 4-cylinder, and the RAV4 with the 2.5-liter 4-cylinder in its non-hybrid and hybrid configurations. The Camry Hybrid and RAV4 Hybrid deserve special mention because they introduce a cost dimension that is not captured in the traditional reliability analysis. Fuel cost reduction of $3,000 to $5,000 over 12 years relative to the equivalent non-hybrid versions, with a hybrid system failure rate that is genuinely low and supported by Toyota's decades of hybrid engineering experience. The Toyota models that introduce elevated cost risk to the brand average are the 5-liter V6 applications, the Camry V6, the Avalon, the Sienna, where the timing system complexity introduces more potential failure modes than the 4-cylinder alternatives, and the early GR Corolla and GR86 with their higher performance engines whose long-term durability data is not yet as mature as the mainstream 4-cylinder fleet. The fuel cost component of Toyota's ownership cost advantage deserves specific attention because it represents a sustained annual benefit that accumulates across the full ownership cycle in a way that is easy to overlook in the point-in-time comparison of sticker prices and monthly payments. Toyota's investment in hybrid technology, which began with the first Prius in 1997 and has expanded to include hybrid variants of the Camry, Corolla, RAV4, Highlander, and Sienna, has produced a portfolio of hybrid options whose long-term ownership costs are among the best in any brand's lineup. The RAV4 Hybrid, for example, achieves an EPA-rated 41 miles per gallon combined, approximately 40% better than the conventional RAV4. At 15,000 annual miles and current fuel prices, this represents approximately $900 per year in lower fuel cost. Over 12 years, that is approximately $10,800 in fuel savings relative to the conventional RAV4, a number that exceeds the typical hybrid premium in the original purchase price. Toyota's hybrid battery reliability has been exceptional across more than 25 years of production experience. The NEM-H battery pack in the first and second generation Prius showed a failure rate so low that Toyota extended its hybrid battery warranty to 10 years and 150,000 miles, not because they were forced to by regulation, but because the data supported the confidence. The lithium-ion packs in the RAV4 Hybrid and other current models have a shorter real-world history, but the early data and Toyota's track record in hybrid system engineering suggest continued strong performance. This hybrid reliability advantage is important for the ownership cost calculation because hybrid battery replacement, the repair that many buyers fear as the defining risk of hybrid ownership, is both less likely and less expensive than the fear suggests. Toyota RAV4 hybrid batteries that fail outside warranty cost approximately $3,000 to replace, a significant but not catastrophic expense that occurs with enough infrequency that the 12-year ownership cost calculation, when properly weighted for the probability of failure, shows the hybrid as the lower total cost option in high-mileage applications. The complete ranking from most to least expensive to own over 12 years, with estimated 12-year total ownership cost per vehicle for the representative model in the segment. Mitsubishi Outlander, the highest 12-year total cost, driven primarily by severe depreciation that imposes a capital loss disproportionate to the vehicle's actual mechanical quality. Infiniti QX60, second highest, driven by CVT repair risk on earlier configurations and premium service costs that compound across the ownership cycle. Acura MDX, third highest, where premium pricing raises every cost category against the mechanical quality advantage of the underlying Honda platform. Subaru Outback, fourth, where head gasket history on pre-2012 models, all-wheel drive fuel economy penalty, and electrical system attrition raise costs above the segment median despite strong early resale values. Mazda CX-5, Fifth, and notably close to the top two performers, where genuine mechanical quality and minimal complexity produce a cost profile that should command more market premium than it currently does. Honda CR-V, second lowest overall, where brand strength supports depreciation and genuine mechanical quality limits unscheduled repair costs, with the 1.5T cold weather caveat for specific climate applications. Toyota RAV4, lowest overall, where the combination of best-in-segment depreciation, lowest unscheduled repair frequency, and universal support infrastructure produces a 12-year total ownership cost that no other Japanese brand matches. The overarching conclusion from this analysis is more nuanced than the rankings suggest. The brand at the bottom of this list is not a bad vehicle. It is a vehicle that is mispriced at the point of sale relative to its depreciation trajectory, and that offers genuinely good value when purchased used after the majority of that depreciation has already occurred. The brand at the top of the list has earned its position not through marketing but through decades of engineering decisions that prioritize the owner's long-term cost interest. Understanding where every dollar of vehicle ownership cost actually comes from, and which brands minimize each component of that cost, is the knowledge that transforms a vehicle purchase from a transaction you make based on feel, reputation, and showroom experience into a financial decision grounded in the actual economics of what a vehicle costs you to own. That grounding is what this analysis was designed to provide. The rankings are the output. The reasoning behind them is the part you can use.